Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Blackwood is out, and the first thing I want to do is share the build I'm going to run on my main character, which is the Magicka Sorcerer. For this chapter, for almost all of the content, I'll obviously go into a couple of different options that you'll have as well. There is a great setup, by the way, this patch, with 2 crafted sets that can get you a huge amount of DPS as well, and we'll get into that too. So yeah, let's just quickly buff up and have a look at our stats. So we're sitting on about 31k maximum magicka, 23k max health, 12k max stamina. Magicka recovery is pretty good with 1600. Our spell damage is 4100, but that will go up quite a bit. And then we've got 63% crit chance, and our resistances are also, as long as we're in lightning form, very high. So 20k spell resistance and 15k physical resistance, which makes you very tanky for all kinds of content, so you're less likely to die. We've got 64 points into magicka using the Thief Mundus Stone, and for food we're using the Witch Mother's Potent Brew, which gives us magicka recovery, maximum magicka, and maximum health. The extra magicka recovery here is pretty nice. You can also go with the blue food. There are a couple of choices. I do prefer Witch Mother because we're already at 2,300, 23,500 health anyway. So I think that's almost 24k health. That's quite a good amount, really, to survive in all kinds of content. If you want to be a bit safer, you can also use the blue food. That will push your health up quite a bit more higher, and your max magicka as well, but you will not have the magicka recovery, which will make it a little bit harder to sustain. And then obviously you can also use the Clockwork Citrus Filly if you can afford it. This will boost our stats even more and give us a bit more health recovery, so we'll get a little bit more max health, max magicka recovery, and health recovery. So if we just look at this again with the Clockwork Citrus Filly, the stats aren't changing too much. You'll get a little bit more of everything. Our max health is closer to 24k, max magicka is a little bit higher as well, and the magicka recovery goes up a little bit as well. So in absolute endgame content, I would go with the Clockwork Citrus Filly in all cases. Say if you're doing veteran dungeons or veteran DLC trials on hard modes. But other than that, Witch Mother's Potent Brew is just a lot cheaper. And then obviously for the potion, we're still using the Essence of Spell Power with Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Major Intellect to increase your magicka recovery, your spell damage, and your spell critical. You can also buy these with Alliance points now. They're called Alliance Spell Draught. They give you exactly the same Intellect, Sorcery, and Prophecy. So that's pretty much the exact same potion, and if you have a lot of Alliance points, then you can just buy these. Okay, let's get into the skills. First off is our spammable. There is 2 options here. In most content, I prefer Crushing Shock, actually, from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is the morph of Force Shock, morph it to Crushing Shock, and what this does is it just deals flame damage, frost damage, and shock damage, so all 3 types to an enemy, and while enemies are casting something, they can be interrupted and set off balance and stunned. So the other morph would be a tiny bit more DPS, the Force Pulse, but I do prefer the Crushing Shock because there are so many dungeons and trials. Just think about the Flame Shapers in Hel Ra, or the Poison Boss in Asylum Sanctorium. Pretty much every trial has enemies in there that need to be interrupted, and a lot of people don't like to take care of it, so I'd rather have the option here that interrupts as well. Now, if you're going single target on the target dummy, or in actual content if you like to do that, you can also use Elemental Weapon, which is also a spammable, and this will just charge your next light attack to be used within 2 seconds to deal additional magic damage and apply the Burning, Concussed, or Chilled status effect. So on the target dummy, I prefer this as well. In actual content, as I said, because of the interrupts, and also because this can be, if there's a bit of lag, this can be quite hard to use in actual content. These are your 2 options for the spammables, Crushing Shock or Elemental Weapon, whichever one you prefer, really. Next up is our shield. so we can survive in actual content and shield up if needed to. This is Hardened Ward from the Daedric Summoning skill line. Starts as Conjured Ward, just morph it to Hardened Ward. And this basically just gives you a 6-second damage shield for you and your pet, which absorbs up to 13k damage. Then next up is our pet, the Twilight Tormentor. This is also from the Daedric Summoning skill line. It's the 3rd skill you can unlock. It starts as Summon Winged Twilight, and then you can morph it to Twilight Tormentor for a little bit more damage. Or to the Twilight Matriarch, so if you activate it, it heals you. Now, this will just summon your pet, as you can see, thing that's flying with us here. And the Twilight Tormentor is going to deal shock damage every so often, as long as it's flying by your side. Plus, once summoned, you can activate the special ability by pushing the button you assigned it to, and make it deal 53% more damage to enemies above 50% health. So you don't activate this in Execute at all, but you can use it, the ability, if the boss is over 50% health still. So your Tormentor will do more damage. Now, the morph is totally your choice. The Matriarch obviously does a little bit less damage, but the Matriarch can heal you, and I do actually switch morphs depending on the content. So if I'm going into Veteran Cloud Rest and I'm assigned to do portals, and as you might know, if you are in Veteran Cloud Rest in the portal, if you pick up the orb, once the crystal is destroyed, you take a whole lot of damage and you need to carry it to the shard very fast. And the Twilight Tormentor actually heals you and another person, so it can heal, take care of the healing for the whole portal team. So in VCR, just for an example, the Matriarch would definitely be my preferred choice, just because it's a lot safer and easier to deal with the mechanics if you can heal yourself, and it's a really strong heal. Other than that, on the dummy and in most other content, I just stick to the Tormentor for the extra damage, but you can switch these morphs back and forth. It doesn't cost too much. So just choose whatever you prefer. If you're mostly playing solo content and arenas, you might just want to go with the Matriarch anyway, just because the extra heal is very, very nice. Even though we do have built-in self-heals and we're very tanky already. But that's all really your choice. Okay, next up, also from the Daedric Summoning skill line, is Daedric Prey. This is the second thing you unlock. It's the morph of Daedric Curse. And what this does is you cast a destructive rune dealing magic damage to one single target and extra magic damage to nearby enemies after 6 seconds. And while the curse is active, your pet deals an additional 20% damage. So this is also very important, because if you keep that curse up most of the time, your Twilight Tormentor and even your ultimate, your Atronach, or if you want to run a monster set like Maw of the Infernal, those will all do more damage. Everything that's a pet will do 20% more damage to targets. So this is a very important thing as well for the build, because it makes our pets stronger. However, it explodes after 6 seconds. So just to show you, put the curse on something and then you can see it ticking down above his head, 2, 1, 0, and then it explodes and deals damage and also area of effect damage. You don't want to recast this early, obviously, because if you do cast it before it's out, then it won't explode. The timer will just go back to 6 seconds, and then you'll lose out on a whole lot of damage. Now, let me quickly put the pet away so it stops attacking. So this is how that skill works. And then the next thing we've got is Crystal Fragments. This comes from the Dark Magic skill line. First thing you unlock starts as Crystal Shard, morph it to Crystal Fragments. And this is a proc ability. So you can use it, but it has a long cast time, so you want to wait for the proc. You will notice that when the symbol turns sort of purplish or pink, and then it'll be the instant cast. That's the thing it says there at the bottom. Casting a magic ability has a 35% chance of causing your next crystal fragments to be instant and deal 66% more damage and cost 50% less Magicka. So that is really the only time you wanna use this skill, is when it procs, and when you can do it as an instant cast. So I'll quickly show you how this goes. Let's say you're just spamming with your spammable Crushing Shock, and then you wait for the crystal fragments to proc. Now they turn pink, as you've seen, and then you can use it. Otherwise, they took forever. He puts his staff away. But if it's pink, it's just an instant cast. And that is how you want to use this. So you want to pretty much use your spammable until it turns pink, then use the crystal frags, then keep on with your spammable, then use the crystal frags every time the instant cast is available. Okay, for an ultimate on our front bar, we've got Shooting Star. This comes from the Mage's Guild skill line. This is a rough one to level up because you'll have to find Mage's Guild books or do daily quests from the Mage's Guild all over Tamriel. And this will call down a comet from the sky, dealing 13k flame damage to all enemies in the area and stunning them for 2 seconds. And then after that, for 13 seconds, they will take an additional 3,500 flame damage every 1 second. Plus, you generate 12 ultimate for each enemy hit by the initial blast. So it is quite a nice ultimate, but we're really having that on the front bar for the passives of the Mage's Guild, because if we do have a Mage's Guild skill on the front bar, our max Magicka and Magicka recovery will be increased by 2%, and casting 1 also grants us Empower. We'll get into the passives later, even though you're not going to cast that very often because our main ultimate is on our back bar, but we do like the passives here with the max Magicka and Magicka recovery increased by 2% for the meteor slotted. So it's a nice choice, and it gives us a little bit more recovery and resources. Alright, on the back bar, we've got Boundless Storm. This makes us really tanky. This comes from the Storm Calling skill line. So the second thing you unlock starts as Lightning form. You can morph it to Boundless Storm, and for 20 seconds, you will pretty much be a living lightning, dealing shock damage every 1 second to everything that's near you. And you will also gain Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by almost 6k. Plus, when you activate it, you also gain Major Expedition for a brief period, so for 4 seconds your movement speed will be increased, which is very nice if you need to quickly go from one place to the next. You'll be really fast, you'll be a living lightning, and you will have much higher resistances, 6k more spell resistance and 6k more physical resistance. So this does deal damage, and it makes you really tanky. It's a really good skill to use. Next up is Crit Surge, also from the Storm Calling skill line. Starts out as Surge. You can morph it to Critical Surge, and what this does is it will grant you Major Brutality and Sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage, but we already get that from the potion, so that's not really necessary. However, while active, dealing critical damage heals you for 3k health, and this can occur every 1 second. So basically, we've got a pretty good crit with 60%, or 63% that it was, and so you will crit quite a lot, and every time you do, every 1 second, this can heal you for 3k health, almost, even more. So this is really, really substantial in keeping you alive, especially in solo content. If you are in trials with an actual healer, you might not need this actually, but it does work very nicely, because even if the healer is occupied with something else, or like looking out for the tank or anything really, or the healer's far away, like in VAS, because they have the kite, you can just heal yourself by having this active. It even lasts for 33 seconds, so a really long time, and every time you crit, you heal yourself. So this makes you really tanky, this makes you heal yourself. This is pretty much your means to survive. Obviously the pet is on the back bar as well. We've already talked about that. You need to have it on both bars, otherwise it will disappear every time you swap your bars. And then next up are AoE skills. This is Mystic Orb from the Undaunted skill line. It's one of the strongest AoE damage skills in the game at the moment. Starts as Necrotic Orb, morph it to Mystic Orb, and this will send a orb flying over the place, dealing magic damage every 1 second. Plus, what's really great in trial situations, all of your allies can take the synergy from the orb, causing it to explode for magic damage, and they will restore 4k Magicka or stamina, whichever is higher for them. So this looks like this. You just send it floating around the room, it deals damage to everything nearby, and your allies can take a synergy and get 4k Magicka or stamina back, whichever is higher for them. This is really, really nice in trial situations. If a lot of DPS run this skill, then you always have synergies. You can always get some Magicka back or some stamina, whatever you need, and it really, really helps a lot for the whole group with resource management. Okay, the last thing we've got other than the ultimate, is again from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is Unstable Wall of Elements. Starts out as Wall of Elements, morph it to the unstable one, and this pretty much just puts a field on the ground which will deal flame damage or lightning damage depending on which staff you use. I use a flame staff here, so this will deal flame damage every 1 second to everyone in the area. Obviously flame damage can set things on fire, and burning enemies take 20% more damage from this ability, and when it ends the barrier explodes, dealing another 6k flame damage. So it just looks like this, and everything inside of this field will take damage every second, and it will also help with keeping a glyph from your backbar weapon up. Finally, for an ultimate, there's two choices again. Actually, here for the Mystic Orb, there's another choice. If you're doing single target stuff, I'll get into that in a second, you can use Degeneration instead of the Orb. For trials and dungeons, the Orb is really, really good, as I said, because it helps everybody sustain, it gives synergies to the group. But if you're on the target dummy, you can replace it with Degeneration because it's cheaper and does about the same amount of damage. The Orb is a little bit stronger, but it's very expensive, so Degeneration for the dummy. Or single target fights in general, if you don't need synergies. So last up, the Greater Storm Atronach for an ultimate. This also comes from the Daedric Summoning skill line. You summon a big Storm Atronach that will deal shock damage every 1 second, and also allies can activate the Charged Lightning synergy, which will give Major Berserk to the Atronach and to themselves, increasing the damage done by 10% for 8 seconds. So tell people to take the synergy. It makes the Atronach stronger, and it makes them stronger as well for 8 seconds. This is our single target ultimate, which we will use in most content. Other than we need AoE ultimate, then you can replace this with Elemental Rage from the Destruction Staff, which will pretty much just cause a big firestorm to wipe out everything in the area for 7 seconds. So either Elemental Rage or the Greater Storm Atro on the back bar, whatever you have unlocked yet. Both of them are very helpful depending on the content. Now, just as a short recap, if you are on the target dummy, you can replace Crushing Shock with Elemental Weapon from the Psijic Order skill line. It's a bit stronger in single target or dummy humping situations. And then you can replace the Mystic Orb on the back bar with Degeneration, which is also for single target situations. And then that ultimate is single target anyway, but if you need an AoE ultimate, you replace this with the Destruction Staff ultimate, so Elemental Rage. That's your 3 skills that you can swap out depending on if you want to have AoE damage or single target damage. Okay, we'll have a quick look at the passives just to understand the character a bit better. In the Dark Magic one, Unholy Knowledge reduces your health, magic, and stamina cost of your abilities. You definitely want that. Blood Magic, when you hit an enemy with a Dark Magic ability, you heal for 2k health. This is also very good because we are using Crystal Fragments every time it procs, so every time you do that, you will heal. Then Persistence, after blocking an attack, your next health, magicka, or stamina ability costs 15% less. This is pretty good as well, because there are quite a couple trials where you have to block things. And then when you cast a Dark Magic ability, you grant Minor Prophecy to you and your group, increasing their spell critical rating by 1314 for 20 seconds. So every time you do use the Crystal Fragments, you give your whole group that buff Minor Prophecy to increase their spell critical rating. It's also very nice. Daedric Summoning, we're using a lot of skills from this, so you restore 300 magicka or stamina when one of your non-ultimate Daedric Summoning abilities ends. So every time your pet is killed, you do restore magicka. It's very nice for us. This is super good. Power Stone reduces the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%. Definitely get that. Daedric Protection increases your health and stamina recovery by 20% while you have a Daedric Summoning ability slotted. So we do have the pet on both bars. And then increases your max health while you have a Daedric Summoning pet active. So that is why we can get away with using Clockwork Citrus Filly or the Witch Mother's Potent Brew, because we get an extra 8% health anyway just for having the pet active at all times. Stormcalling, this is very good, increases your magicka recovery by 10%, increases your physical and shock damage by 5%, increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. So it's like a a turned around execute, sort of. You'll be very strong the more health the target has or the boss has. And then increases your weapon and spell damage for each sorcerer ability slotted. So that's a full 8% more spell damage for us on our front bar. And back bar, actually. Yeah, apparently it just says slotted though. Oh yeah, because we have all of these. Sure. Alright, destruction stuff. You want all of these because it's your main weapon on the front and back bar. Then light armor, you want all of these. For this build in particular, you can get the medium armor ones as well, because there will be one piece of medium armor. And some of these are actually quite nice, so you have a bit more stamina recovery. Your weapon damage is increased a tiny bit, and your movement speed is gets a bonus. Also, your roll dodges cost a little bit less. So athletics and windwalker would definitely be the ones that I put points in. You don't have to get all of them, because we don't actually have any abilities that deal weapon damage. But the windwalker and athletics one, that might make a bit of a difference if you get like a 4% roll dodge decreased cost. So that's very nice as well. We don't need any of this stuff here. That's all just world stuff. And for the guilds, we're not using any Fighters Guild abilities, so you don't really need any of these. However, you do want all of the Mage's Guild passives, because you will be using Shooting Star and eventually Degeneration. Sigic Order, if you do decide to use Elemental Weapon, you obviously want all of these, because it makes it cost less and grants you a couple of other good bonuses. And Undaunted, you want all of these, because for every piece of light, medium, or heavy armor you have, you get a bonus of 2%. So we've got 4% more max health, stamina, and magicka just for the Undaunted metal. And then when we take a synergy, we will restore 4% more max health, stamina, or magicka. So these are very good as well. Obviously, you do want your racial skills, whatever race you want to be on. I'm a high elf here, just because I didn't want to race change it. Khajiit is probably the strongest option, but only by like 0 point something %, if I'm correct. So the top 3 races would be Khajiit, High Elf, and Dark Elf. But you can run this build on anything, really. You can also be a Breton easily, or anything that has a magicka or a spell damage bonus, really, just to boost your attacks a little bit. So High Elves do have that spell damage bonus and extra max magicka. Khajiits get a bit more crit damage, but anything Khajiit, High Elf, Dark Elf is the top races. But you can easily, as I said, run it on a Breton. You can probably even run it on a Nord. It doesn't make too much of a difference anymore. Since the last patch, the races have all kind of been squeezed together in terms of damage output a little bit. So whereas it used to be a big damage drop off from a High Elf to a Nord, nowadays it is a bit of a damage drop off still, but it is not as much as it used to be. So any race will do, really. And then for the passives in alchemy, you want the medicinal use, so your spell power potions last 30% longer and actually have 100% uptime. That is all of the passives you need. Okay, let's look at the sets we're running here. First off, we've got Medusa from Ark's Coronium the Dungeon on the front bar. A precise Inferno Staff with flame damage glyph on it. And what this set does, it just gives you loads of spell crit bonuses. So all of the 2, 3, 4, and 5 piece bonuses are spell crit bonuses. Plus you gain minor force at all times, increasing your critical damage done by 10%. It's a really strong set. Right, obviously Medusa is a heavy set, and you could run it with 3 jewelry and 2 body pieces if you don't want to farm for the staff. But we don't actually spend a lot of time on our back bar, so I think it's good enough to front bar it. Especially since this patch you want to have as many light body pieces as possible for all of the light armor skill passives. So Inferno Staff of Medusa on the front bar, precise with flame damage glyph, and then on the jewelry you've got the necklace and 2 rings of Medusa. all in Bloodthirsty with spell damage. That set comes from Arx Coronium. I'll get into optional sets later. And the Minor Force is really nice because the other skill that would have given us Minor Force before would be the Fighter's Guild skill, Barb Trap, which gives you Minor Force. But then you'd have to slot that and change your rotation. And as a sorcerer, you do have limited bar space already, so I don't really want to take Boundless Storm or Crit Surge off in favor of Barb Trap. So Medusa is really nice because we don't have to use Barb Trap. It gives so much spell crit bonuses, and it's easy to farm as well because Arx Coronium is a really easy dungeon. It's just one of the base game dungeons. You don't need any DLCs for that, so just get yourself that. You can also run this with a lightning stuff, by the way, if you can't get the Inferno. The Inferno stuff is a bit stronger, but a lightning stuff does for the time being if that's the first thing that drops for you. So just aim for the Inferno, but if you get a lightning, you can use that too. On the back bar, we have the Maelstrom's Inferno stuff, obviously, and infused with a poison damage glyph. This will increase the damage of your light and heavy attacks of enemies inside of your Wall of Elements. So you put your Wall of Elements down, and then you can swap to your front bar, and now all of the enemies inside that will get hit with your light or heavy attacks will take more damage from that. You can easily get that on normal as well, perfected or normal, it doesn't matter. If you don't want to run Veteran Maelstrom Arena because it's too hard for you, just go in on normal. It's fairly easy, and just grind it out a bit until you get an Inferno stuff, morph it to Infused, or transmute it to Infused, put a Poison Glyph on it, and you're set. Okay, next up is our buddy set. This is also very easy to get. It's just normal Ceroria from Cloudrest Trial. You do need ESO Plus or the Somerset expansion to access the Cloudrest Trial, but you only need buddy pieces, and you only need them on normal. The perfected one does a tiny bit more damage, but it's totally not necessary to deal good damage to have the perfected version. And normal Cloudrest gets run all day long. Just go to Craglorn, find a group. They'll usually say hosting NCR, which is normal Cloudrest, in the zone chat, and then you just whisper them and say, hey, I'm a DD, I want to come, or I'm a healer, I want to come. Whatever other characters you have. So Ceroria, really easy to farm. All you need is buddy pieces. You don't even need the weapons or jewelry. This will give you spell damage, Minor Slayer to increase your damage done to Dungeon Trial and Arena monsters, max Magicka, and dealing direct damage with a single target attack creates a ring of fire beneath you for 10 seconds. This can occur every 10 seconds, and standing in the ring grants you a stack of Ceroria's Boon for 5 seconds. Each stack increases your spell damage by 52 10 stacks max, so that's 520 spell damage you can get at 10 stacks. Now let's have a quick look at that. As you can see, the ring is here, and as long as I stand in the ring, my stacks will go up. That's above my health bar. The reddish buff that looks like maybe a heart with some fire around it, or like a red thing with some orange around it. And then you can see the stacks there. I've got 10 stacks at the moment, and as long as I'm in the ring, these 10 stacks will stay. When the ring is gone, they will start to drop off. So you have to stay inside of the ring. You can do your back bar stuff as long as you swap to your front bar in time and are in the ring and don't let it drop off. As long as you have these 10 stacks, you will have 520 more spell damage, which is a really nice amount. Okay, so Ceroria on the buddy. We've got that on the feet, all in divines with max Magicka glyphs. On the feet, hands, waist, shoulders, and chest. Because we are not running a monster set with this setup, there's a stronger option now. You probably have heard of it. So we have one piece of Slime Craw in light on the head or shoulders. It doesn't matter if you have Ceroria shoulders or Ceroria head or Slime Craw's head or Slime Craw's shoulders, as long as one of them. Obviously, since Slime Craw is a monster set, you can only get the head or shoulders. So one piece Slime Craw in divines with the max Magicka glyph, just for the one piece bonus of an extra 771 crit chance. And then the other piece in Ceroria, so we have 5 pieces of Ceroria on the body, 1 piece Slime Craw on either the head or the shoulders in divines, And then the new mythic item, the Harpooner's Wading Kilt in Divines with Max Magicka Glyph, obviously as well. Dealing direct damage grants you a stack of Hunter's Focus up to, for 1 minute, up to 10 stacks max. You can only gain 1 stack per second. Each stack of Hunter's Focus increases your critical chance by 125 and your critical damage by 1%. Taking direct damage removes 5 stacks of Hunter's Focus. And obviously removing the item removes all of these stacks of Hunter's Focus. So this is really good in situations where the tank has control of the boss and the ads and you do not get hit by direct damage, because if you do get hit, it removes 5 stacks immediately and you'll have to build them back up again. But if you're in a situation like Sunspire where there's only a dragon and the boss is tanking the dragon and the tank is tanking the dragon and the off tank has all of the other ads pretty much under control, there's a lot of situations this actually works quite fine in. If you are taking huge amounts of damage, then you'll have to take this off and just run a normal monster set instead. Just have Sororia on the legs as well and just run a monster set of your choice. The strongest one would still be Zaan's or Maw of the Infernal. Pretty much your top options here. Though for Zaan's you have to be in an 8-meter range, I think it is, to not break the fire beam, and Maw of the Infernal gets boosted by your Daedric Curse and is not really tied to any situational stuff like where you stand or how far you are away. So both of these work very, very well. Maw is definitely easier to get, but aim for the both of them. Zaan's is a bit stronger in the dummy. Maw is probably a bit better in content, even though the tanks might get pissy. And then another nice option is Dummy House, which will give you max magicka, and it will increase your spell damage and deal flame damage for quite a bit. And obviously you can also still use Grostar, which is a nice option for solo content and stuff like that, because it gets a ring of fire around you, so everything that gets near you gets zapped because you're in lightning form, and also gets hit by Grostar with the flame damage. So my top options would be Zaan's, Maw of the Infernal, Dummy House, and then Grostar. Or you could also just run 2 crit pieces, so 1 piece Slimecraw and 1 piece Zaan's for 2 crit bonuses. That's really up to you. In case you do not have the Harpooner's Wading Kilt, you do not have the DLC, or you just don't want to wear it because you don't really want to spend 10 hours in Shadowfen harvesting stupid water nodes, you can also just go with the normal 5-piece Sororia on the body and then monster set or 2 crit monster set pieces. Alright, so much for the build. Now, there is one option that works really, really well where you don't have to farm anything at all, really. And that would be using on the jewelry and on your front bar stuff this set here. Mechanical Acuity. This does not need to be in precise because you already get 100% crit chance. What this set does is when you deal direct damage, you gain unerring mechanical vision for 5 seconds, granting you 100% critical strike chance. So for 5 seconds, everything you do will crit. Obviously you don't need precise then to increase your spell critical or weapon critical. So you run infused on this with a flame damage enchant on the front bar. And on the jewelry, also Bloodthirsty with spell damage. And this set is craftable. You just need someone to craft it for you. The crafting station is in Clockwork City, so it's really easy to get this. And then the other thing you can do on the body instead of Sororia is use one of the new crafted sets. Oh, that's a good question. Where's the crafted sets even? Right, I do have the station here. So Mechanical Acuity on the body, and then this one here, Diamond's Victory on the body. This will give you weapon and spell damage, crit chance, weapon and spell damage, and while in combat, using an ability with a range of 7 meters or less grants you range supremacy for 5 seconds, adding 376 spell damage to your damage over time and ranged attacks. Plus, while in combat, using an ability with a range of over 7 meters grants you melee supremacy for 5 seconds, adding weapon and spell damage to your melee attacks. So this is really strong. Obviously, these numbers will go up if you gold it out or make it purple. This is just the white version now. but it's also a crafted set from the new thing, from the Blackwood DLC. So you can pretty much get away with getting really good DPS out of having Diamond's Victory as a crafted set on your body, and then Mechanical Acuity as a crafted set on your jewelry and front bar weapon, and all you need to farm is the Maelstrom's Inferno stuff and the monster set or 2 crit pieces. No, actually not 2 crit pieces, because you already get 100% crit chance from Mechanical Acuity. So if you run with Mechanical Acuity and Diamond's Victory, you can easily just go with Maw of the Infernal, because, or Zaan's. Probably better to go with Maw of the Infernal in this case because of the extra Magicka bonus. And it's a pet. As long as you keep your Daedric Prey up, you will do huge amounts of DPS. Alright, so that's the build, really. It's pretty easy to get. Medusa's easy to farm, Sororia normal, Cloudrest is easy to farm. Or you can just go with 2 crafted sets and do almost as much DPS. Now let's quickly go for the rotation. It's really simple, it's a static one. So all you do in the back bar is Degeneration or Orb. Then you do your Lightning form, Bouquet of Fire, and then on the front bar you do the Daedric Curse, and then you just do 4 or 5 spammables and use your Crystal Fragments every time they proc. That's a bit hard to see now. It's really simple. So Orb, Boundless, Blockade, Pray, Spam, Crystal Frags proc, Spam, 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 Crystal Frags proc, and back to the bar. Orb, Blockade, Boundless. Doesn't matter which row you do it in, as long as it's the 3 skills. And on the front bar you just do your Curse, and then do your spammable 4 or 5 times, and use the Crystal Frags every time they proc. Obviously I did not have my pet up now. You do obviously want to have your pet up, and you do want to use your Storm Atronach whenever it's ready. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks a lot for watching. This build works really well in all kinds of content. As I said, if you're on the target dummy and you want to push some numbers, go for Elemental Weapon as a spammable and for Degeneration instead of Orb because it's cheaper. But if you're in actual content and trials or stuff, just go with Crushing Shock and on the front bar and the Orb on the back bar. And yeah, this is really tanky. You can heal yourself all the time. You do put out some really good damage. As I said before, if you want to run a lightning stuff instead, you can do that as well. It's actually nice in dungeons, especially if there's lots of ads, like in Darkshade Caverns or so, because of the splash damage from the lightning stuff. But that's the build. That's how I'm going to run my Sorc. This is the exact same build that I took into Veteran Rockgrove last night, and managed to really not die too much and get the bosses down pretty successfully. So you can definitely trust me with that. It's a really great build. You can run it on pretty much everything and do enough damage for all of the content in the game as well. So have a good one. I'll see you with the next build.